we're happy. We have our family from across the state that's joined us. So this is going to be a class that's based on a couple of concepts from a variety of sources. So some of the basics are going to be from the one thing. Some of them are going to be from the MREA. Some of them are going to be from Atomic Habits. And at the end of the day, this is, and also Miracle Morning. So if you want to write any of those books down, those are all awesome resources. So Miracle Morning, I love Miracle Morning for Millionaires. There's a couple of versions of it, but who wants to read the one that says Miracle Morning for Real Estate Agents when you can read the one that says Miracle Morning for Millionaires? And then again, the one thing, Atomic Habits. My staff right now in New York is reading Atomic Habits as a group. I'm doing book club on that. That's another phenomenal book. So the question that I asked yesterday in our group chat, does anybody remember that question where everybody was like, uh-oh?
If somebody looked at your schedule, would they know what your goal is? If someone looked at your schedule today, would they know what your goal is for the year? Okay.
What's your one thing?
So that was the question. If somebody looked at your schedule for today, would they know what your goal is for the year? Did anybody get icky feelings in their tummy with that question?
Yes.
Right? Was like being an investor in Starbucks on your goal for the year? Was sitting in your jammies until 10 o'clock in the morning? Like, right? Like what are your goals? Because your calendar is a representation of your goals. In a micro level, your calendar is a representation of your goals. So I use that as a framework for a conversation about time blocking, because time blocking itself is a really nerdy term for protecting the time to do what is important. So we're going to start right away in the workshop format with you guys doing something. The thing you're going to do is in this packet, or I can give you really simple instructions for anybody online who doesn't have the packet printed. But if you want to open the packet and you want to go to the page that is number 8, goal setting to the now. We're going to spend the first 5 minutes of this class in absolute silence, although I can maybe put some music on, while you do this exercise. I don't expect perfection at all. If you've ever done a version of this exercise, it'll be faster for you this time. But that's what we're going to start with. And if someday goals are intimidating, start somewhere in the middle. If you're like, I do know what my 1 year goal is, I can do that, then start at 1 year. But for anybody who's just trying to follow along and doesn't have the PDF and doesn't want to do, like figure, just it's cool. Let's just start with, where do you want to be in 5 years? iPhone something, 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 something. Let's see what happens with this. We all ready?
Yes. It's emotions.
I know, there's emojis on it, makes me nervous. All right, they're just hanging out.
Who you at, iPhone?
Who is that iPhone?
Hi, everybody. It's Amanda.
Hey, all right.
We're gonna mute you.
I know. I was like, I don't know this name. I'm a little nervous.
You know what? My daughter did that. I can't get it to change back.
All good, all good. So we're starting right now. We're diving right in. Goal setting to the now. If you are stumped on like what to do or whatever, just start with where would I like to be in 5 years? And the question that comes from career visioning is, if we're sitting here in 5 years and everything has gone amazing, what has happened? So start with that, and then the exercise itself is actually you write the goal, and then you write underneath it, based on your someday goal, what's one thing you could do in the next 5 years? Based on your 5-year goal, what's the one thing I can do this year? So you're asking yourself, what's the one thing? And that's really important. I gave this exercise to somebody the other day. They literally gave me 4 things. Don't do that. It's 1. It says 1. Hang on, I'll help you. I'm gonna give you little prompts. Here's one. What you're writing down, how would you measure that you've done that? What you're writing down, how would you measure that you've done it? How would you know you've accomplished it? Is it something super vague? Or could you say, I know I nailed it? Who's already at weekly? Hallie's at monthly? Jayla, we're doing goal setting to the now.
When did it start? I'm not sure. I came in after I was off the phone.
Yeah.
Joe, I'm sorry. I walked in at the end. Can you tell me again what the?
Yeah, so we're using the document. Darren has a PDF version of it. We're doing the document goal setting to the now on page 8 of the kick-ass guide to goal setting that's in the chat. Basically, what I want to know is what's your someday goal? What's your 5-year goal? What's your 1-year goal? What's the one thing that you would need to do to get to those goals?
Someday right now.
For everybody that's still up in like the month and the week, I have bad news. It gets worse as you go down. It's
I
hard.
know, man, struggling
It
here.
gets so hard. Jayla,
I'm here.
hi.
Hey.
I love how you have your goals like written places. What's something that's really important to you that you accomplish in the next 5 years?
In the next 5 years, owning rental properties. I'd say, or does it need to be more specific?
I would get more specific.
I figure you would say that. In the next 5 years, I want to own at least 5 rental properties at least 5 rental properties.
Awesome. So you could use that. That could be where you started the 5-year. Your someday goal is to have $150,000 a month passive cash.
Like to think about it.
You're right.
And then your 5-year goal would be have 5 rentals by.
Like to focus. Reconcile that. That's what I want to do on this. Because this is like, I'm in the same boat.
We got Altoona repping. Fran's there in the dark. Okay. Who's made it? Who made it down to right now?
I don't have anything right now, so I have all the other ones
You have everything except for right now.
right now,
Everything but right now.
right now.
How are you?
I'm writing down my goals. She said, well, I had to answer the phone.
It's true. You did have to answer the phone. Okay. So again, this is an interactive workshop. This is not me just talking about goal setting or time blocking. So we're going to knock this out in the next 5 minutes. I want sharing of what you found when you, because like 2/3 of this page, everything from here down is within 1 year, right? So you have to really whittle that down. What did you guys find as you went from 1 year to right now? I'd like as many shares as possible. If everybody wants to share, we'll take the time. Andrew, do you want to go first? You're first on my screen. I'll volunteer you.
Right, did I like miss something? What's supposed to?
Which goal are we sharing? Am I sharing?
Start with 1 year. You don't have to go all the way to someday, but like, what'd you find at 1 year?
Yeah, so I want to make real estate full time because right now I work 2 jobs and just to make ends meet while I'm getting started. And I want to own 2 rental properties and have my debt paid off, I don't have very much, but debt paid off, be able to do this full time and not have to worry about anything else. I can just focus on this.
I love that. That's a lot of clarity. So now I'm not smarter than the people who wrote the one thing. I'm gonna read this page. Based on your 1 year goal, what's the one thing you can do this month? How'd you get to that?
A license to go through. I definitely want to win the contest, looking at Mega Camp. There's some incentive to one, be selling homes because we all like a paycheck, but two, if you do very well, possibility of going to Mega Camp on company dime. I'd love that. And reading some of the books in my library. My brother works for LGI in Florida, and he read some of those books like Atomic Habits, Who Moved My Cheese, Subtle Art of Not Giving Enough, like just different things like The Secret, stuff like that. And I'm read a few of them, like Atomic Habits and a couple others, but I really want to read more. And I'm diving into the shift and stuff like this. I love it.
We love that you're here. So if I was to take your monthly, which is to get your license and get yourself into action, based on your monthly goal, what's the one thing you can do this week? Keyword one thing this week.
Stay engaged with things like this, trainings. Don't overwhelm myself because I work overnights. So it's difficult to work a 9 to 5 than 9 to 5, but just stay focused, stay on the meetings, keep talking with Doug and everybody else in the office, and work hard. And I know I'm going to do well.
Awesome. I love your answer, and work hard is an absolute death trap. So we're going to challenge you in a little bit. Anybody else want to share?
I'll share. All right, I'm starting at my 1 year goal. It's my goal to buy a home in 2022.
Yes, we all want that.
Yeah,
You're in the right place.
right. I know a couple people. So the one thing I can do this month, I have get pre-qualified. One thing I can do this week, go next door and talk to Todd. And then one thing I can do today is research lenders. And one thing I can do right now is review finances.
Love that.
That was great.
That's great.
Yeah.
Okay. Hooray.
Me?
Teacher's pet, you were
Okay.
on.
My 5 year goal, well, one day is retire. My 5 year goal is to create more passive income. My estimate is anyway, at least one investment property a year. So one goal would be buy an investment property this year. My monthly goal is to sock away $5,000 towards that ultimate whatever fund. The weekly goal is to create a list to view, because the today goal is to get the pre-approval from my lender, and the right now goal is call the lender. So it just works out.
Yeah, so call the lender is the first domino of retirement. And so that's a great example of how and as it gets down there and you're just like, it forces you to think more specifically, right? And that challenges your brain because the original goal is so big that your brain can just drown in that bigness. Does that make sense? Anybody ever feel that?
The elephant one bite at a
Yeah.
time.
Do you feel that?
Absolutely.
That the largeness of a someday goal is acts as a trap. That's why I said work hard is a death trap, because work hard is immeasurable in a bad way, right? Because what you could say is I will commit 2 hours of undivided real estate time per day because that meets the needs of growing my business, staying engaged, and doesn't overwhelm me. right? So that would be a more, and that's why I was challenging you guys as, that was one of my prompts, was how would you measure that you're doing this? Because you need to make sure that you're creating measurable items, not for the sake of being some type of psychopath who's like measuring every single thing down to the second, but just like, how would you know you're winning? Right? And if you don't know how you would be winning, how do you know how to spend your time to win? And that goes to time blocking, because time blocking is, as I described, it's the nerdy way of describing protecting your time to do what's important for you. Does anybody else want to share anything else that they saw, any ahas, any uncomfortable things about trying to work your way down from some big goals to a right now goal or right now action?
I just want to say that I do find it, the biggest challenge I see people in this exercise is really being able to answer one thing, like really hone it, no, say it again, like,
Yeah.
and keep digging,
Yeah.
because it's usually too broad, like you said, work hard or save money. No, save how much?
Yes. So really common answers. No, I'm not gonna call anybody out, no guilt here. Really common answers look like retirement's actually kind of a guilty one, but you can quantify retirement.
Yeah.
So it's like, or financial independence, I hear a lot, right? I want to be, or some type of wealth or financial goal, right? Okay, well, what does that look like? What does retirement even mean? Have you ever defined retirement, right? Because retirement to me isn't as relaxing probably as most people, because I want to do cool stuff, right? So like, but it's, for me, it's really about replacing active income with passive income. And the more passive income I create, the more active income I can ignore, which just means I don't have to work as hard for the same money. So my version of retirement is slightly different. And then there's numbers, quantitative, trackable numbers that are attached to all of that. It's like, okay, cool. This rental replaces this active income, boom, accomplishment made, right? Does that make sense for anybody? Like, are you seeing how those, so the specific dots start to really add up? And here's the danger. If you don't do the hard work, which I would describe this exercise as the hard work. If you don't do the hard work, then when you sit down to look at your blank calendar, you absolutely will have a much harder time deciding how to spend your time.
Fear of commitment makes this hard.
Fear of commitment makes this hard. Anybody else feel that?
That's such a
I know.
vulnerable thing to say.
I know.
I
hate
love
committing to
that.
things.
That's
I know.
I don't like this at all.
Does anybody else feel that way?
No.
No.
No. Define.
Okay, here's something real. I
That's
love
so
it. I
honest.
love that
Thank
you said
you.
that. Fear of commitment can also be redefined as fear of failure. Because if you commit to something, you're saying that it means enough that you intend to work for it, and that means that the risk of failure exists. You can disappoint yourself.
Yes. Also, I think for this specifically, I mean, obviously I didn't even finish it, but fear of commitment makes it hard because, like, I know objectively how to bring it, you know. So my 5-year goal is be student loan debt free, because I have federal and private, and good Lord, be spicy. And so then 1-year goal, established a consistent payment setup, determine, and then monthly goal, determine consistent % of income towards debt. This would be at least 10. Weekly goal would be review costs and spending habits. Determining where I can cut waste.
So here's, okay, so Lana, super vulnerable, loved that. I love that.
But bringing it down to right now, that makes it so then, like, oh, this is actually achievable and easy.
Yes.
And then that means that I've committed to it, and that's the part that's scary. So.
Yeah. I appreciate that. Here, well, oh, we lost Jayla. I was like, the screen doesn't look the same. Here's something to think about. One thing that I heard in hers, and this is, and no, again, no judgment, we've had a couple of shares, but just take a look at your paper and think about this if I say this out loud, and don't point at anybody. If you have words like determine, plan, think about, research, or look, those words are also traps. Because what does that actually mean?
It's too ambiguous. So like
Yes.
my 5-year goal said create passive income. It should have said own 10 investment properties.
Yes.
Period. It's
Yes.
more concrete.
Yes.
Not ambiguous.
Yeah. So because like, what does it mean to determine? How would you measure that you've determined what that
Right.
is, right? It's literally probably just a math problem. Not being mean, but that's the reality,
Right.
right? So it's like, so in that situation, it might be as simple as the time block or the right now could be take 15 minutes and determine what kind of monthly payment I need to make. Or what something, I'm just totally making that up, but like really it could be that. It could be that simple, like log on to bankrate.com or whatever and do the math, right? Just like, so it's the difference between an action-based verb and some type of ambiguous type of thing, right? Okay, now here's where it gets, as Alana said, spicy.
Yeah.
Who did something today in their daily schedule that helped their someday goal?
That counts, that counts.
Did Alexa just say ooh?
No, Linda, sorry, she said she prayed.
I-
She
Joe,
she
Joe,
said,
I
like-
said that I prayed. I went to my Bible study this morning
You prayed on it?
and we prayed and I spent a lot of the day getting ready for Red Day tomorrow.
Well,
But
we love that.
yeah, I'm really looking forward to time blocking because I really need it.
Well,
So can we just skip this part?
well, we can, but your time block's gonna have a blank label of what to do.
I get it.
So, and like I said, this is the hard part. The reality of time blocking is this. You can I've seen many time blocks as a coach. It was a requirement to be in my schedule that you had to be working off of some type of calendar that was supporting your goals. But the difference between a calendar that's all show and a calendar that's all go is the commitment to the items that are on there, and the specificity of those items dramatically increases the likelihood that you're going to do it. So who knows in the book, The Millionaire Real Estate Agent and Shift, what the actual, okay, let me ask a question here. Real estate agents, who has lead generation on some type of time block in some type of calendar? Anybody? Lead generation? Okay, well, I'm gonna give you guys a really quick lesson from the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book. A real estate agent has 5 jobs, 5 components to their job description. You can take notes if you don't know your job description. You ready? Who's ready? I don't see enough pens. It's because it should have been everybody. Lead generation, lead follow-up, going on appointments, negotiating contracts, and script and role play. I'll do it again. Lead generation, lead follow-up, going on appointments, negotiating contracts, and script and role play. And I said them in that order because if you don't do lead generation, you don't get to follow up with anybody. You probably won't go on many appointments. You won't have any contracts to negotiate, and you can script and role play until you're blue in the face and nobody will care. Lead generation and lead follow-up, right? So actually, one of the things that I liked about in tactic 4 of the lead generation, there's a pug with a Santa hat in there from the video. He talks about lead generating, and one of the things that he says is like you have to be specific about your actions around your lead generation time. There's time that you need to dedicate to preparing There's time that you need to dedicate to actually doing the work, and then then you need to do the follow-up for that. Does anybody ever think of it like that? Does anybody separate their lead generation time like that?
Well, like, for me, sometimes I guess I consider it passive lead gen when I'm like marketing on social media to show, like, to stay relevant. So that's probably not as specific to what you're talking about, but like, yeah, there's a crap ton of preparation. You're an independent contractor, you're the graphic designer, you're the HR, like, you're doing it all.
Mhm.
So there's always prep involved in that.
So how do you define that in your calendar?
Oh, no, I'm the worst. You know, I literally fly by the seat of my pants, which is frightening. And it's like, oh, today, that's right, I've got to do this, that, and the other thing. And I'm like, I've got 30 minutes at 2 o'clock, that's when I'm doing it. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, I hear you.
Yeah. It's crazy it's worth this far.
So I'm gonna read from Shift. Gary says, when I was learning the concept of the one thing, I put a sign over my desk that read, until your number one priority is done, everything else is a distraction. The number one challenge you face won't be either of the first two issues we covered. It will be this: consistently doing lead generation activity over time. It is the one true challenge all real estate agents face, and the number one stumbling block that knocks most out of the game. Not getting lead generation done day in and day out may suffice in a hot market, but it will put you out of business in a cold one. All right, so I'm not saying that you need to redo your goal setting to the now to make sure that it's like lead generate for 3 hours, right? But I'm just pointing out that if you are not that committed to the item, it's not gonna happen. Don't lie to me, don't lie to yourself. Like, decide what you really want, and then let's start to build a time block around it. So that takes us to the next concept of time blocking, which is put your big rocks in the stream first. So the reason we did goal setting to the now is because that helps to flush out what the big goals are. If it's financial, right? So even yours, like paying off debt, that's going to require income to support that. So then it's like, okay, well, cool. Well, like what activities? Like, how do we help to build a financial picture for you that makes sense, right? So for real estate agents who like eat what they kill, it's about lead generation, right? Because if you lead generate, or it may not be, but you may have some other excuse for what it is, but it's probably lead generation, right? Because if it's generating revenue, if your goal, like Fran has shared with me before, and I hope I'm not blowing this out of the water, but she shared that she has a goal of a form of retirement, right? And so for her, that picture might look something like putting the office into a position financially in Johnstown where it's self-sufficient, right? And so there might be activities that are associated with that. It might be building her own business to that place. It might be building the office to that place. I'm just totally making that up, but we've had some conversation. Am I close?
That's funny. That was my someday was retire, enjoy my life and family with financial stability. And then when you get down to the whole bottom here, it was to contact people in my sphere and ask for recommendations of people to recruit. So I was on that recruiting pathway to gain more people, to increase income, to only work 6 months out of the year, and then work my way to retire. So
I
yeah,
love that.
you were on the right path.
Yeah, I mean, it was a really educated, good guess, but like, that's the thing is, so those small activities for her, lead generation is lead generating for recruiting, right? It's just to lead generate to make sure that the office is like where it needs to be, but it's also to make sure her personal business, like that makes sense. So if we use this exercise to come up with those big rocks, then we need to put them in the river. So I asked how many people did activities today that supported the things that they wrote on this sheet, and I got a pretty abysmal response. When are you going to choose to do those things?
Well, it's the pleasure or the pain for it, right? Yeah, I mean, it's like fear of commitment is no different than, I mean, that to me, it's like at some point, the pain of still having student loans will get to the point of like really being ready to commit to that.
Yeah.
Same thing, it's like, oh crap, I haven't had a closing since blah, blah, blah. I guess I better get guess I better be doing that. Do you know what I mean? I'm just saying that in general for any agent.
Yeah. You're right.
When the pain of staying the same becomes greater than the pain of changing, we will change.
That's right. So that's why I mentioned the book Atomic Habits, because what that book talks about is changing the habits that change that desired outcome. And so one of the things that I want to challenge you is when you look at the someday goal, I have a question that I want you to write down, and then I want you to take the time to answer it right after I ask. Okay? What does the person who achieves this behave like? I want you to like just kind of flow of consciousness, write that down. Like what kind of behaviors does that person have? How does that person behave? What does that person read?
Cannot like me be the answer. Not like me.
Not like me. I heard that. So our story, our thinking, our mental existence determines our thoughts, right? Our thinking changes the way that we feel about things, right? So when she's describing that fear is an emotional response, right? So we have an emotional response to the goal. We need to change the emotional response if we expect to change the action.
That makes sense.
Does that make sense? Did that just like hit anybody else in the gut? Like,
Yeah.
so our thinking leads to our, from bold, you know this, right? I'm just going to skip to the middle of it, but our thinking leads to our feelings lead to our actions, and our actions lead to our results. Okay?
Yeah. So we need to change the way we're thinking.
Yeah.
That's a whole mixed bag though. That's a much deeper bag than like goal setting. I'm not trying to be annoying, but like people have a lot of emotional baggage around money.
Yeah.
Like that's that's family, that's childhood,
Mhm.
that's scarcity,
Yep.
that's hunger. Like it's a whole thing.
So if you wanted a workshop on how to write a cool calendar, this wasn't it. Because this is where the different, like you have at least got to acknowledge those blocks, those emotional and mental blocks, if you want your calendar to reflect who you want to be.
Sure. But that's like a good point. If there's a mental block around one of the activities that you know you need to do to reach that goal.
Then what happens?
No, I'm
Yes?
just saying.
No.
Then for me, what I would do would be to dig into how can I get the support that I need to help me process that so that I can move to the next level.
And that becomes
That's the reading.
that becomes the one thing upstream of what you just said. Right?
Yeah.
Because maybe the first,
Higher
maybe the,
therapist.
right, it could be, maybe the one thing prior to some action that if you're looking at an action there and you are like, if I'm being honest with myself, there is a 0% chance I'm willing to take those activities. I'm willing to like tackle that right now, right? I have doubts, I have fears, okay, well, cool. So go upstream to the someday goal and say, well, what does that person think like? What does that person read? How does that person believe in themselves? And then back yourself down and say, okay, cool. What's the first thing I could do that would change my identity so that I'm willing to take the action? So I'm willing to take the time on my calendar to do the things that are important. It might be reading a book. Like I have recommended books to people. People are like, I can't get into lead generation. Okay, well, like, well, why do you want to lead generate? Oh, because I want to be wealthy. Okay, well, cool. Well, like, how do you feel about finances? They terrify me. Okay, so are you willing to go through the pain? So in Atomic Habits, they talk about the valley of despair, right? Are you willing to go through the pain of the activities? Oh, I cannot wait to bring her back in. Are you willing to go through the pain? Are you willing to commit to it if you don't believe in it?
Right.
Now, there's a little bit of the fake it till you make it, and you can certainly like let that will go for some length of time, and there's a possibility that that can reinforce that you're doing the right things, and then you can change your beliefs that way. But if you're not at least acknowledging it right up front, you're in a really uphill battle. So that question, did anybody write some things down?
Yeah.
You haven't shared yet. What did you write down? I don't know your other stuff, but what did you write down on that?
I wrote down structured and purposeful, and then I like underlined a whole bunch of times purposeful, because for me in my life and my business, as I shared before, moving from E to P, I act entrepreneurially and just whimsically through life, and to get to that someday goal, like now has to move to purposeful.
Yeah. So it's cool. I'm going to share with you a story from a coaching client of mine, a friend of mine, and it might trigger something in you. So I gave her a challenge, and this is actually a really great challenge to put on one of your goals, is who do you need to surround yourself with, or who do you need to meet? So I challenged her to meet with somebody that would intimidate her. So she met with this leader in her community who is a total boss. She had to like have like a biometric entry to get into the building, where they like crazy, right? And so she met with her, and she was like super wowed by her. And so yesterday we were having a call, and she sent me her time block, and it was like fine, right? And I was like, cool. What do you think? That lady's name was Kate. I was like, what do you think Kate's time block looks like? Like what would, if she came and saw the way you acted, would she be as wowed by you as you were by her? She was like, uh-oh, no, right? So think about that, right? Like who do you know, or who do you look up to that's doing things really well in the spaces that you're filling in as someday goals or as big goals? And think about that, right? How do they act? How could you talk to them about what's working for them? Because here's where we go to actually building a calendar. Those big rocks, you put the time block there for the right now things, and you don't get to move on to the someday big vague items until you're consistently knocking out the first domino. So what is the first domino for, oh, people are writing, right? What is the first domino for your goal? So maybe now you've looked at your right now, you're like, well, that's like really short. I could do that in 5 minutes. Great. What are you going to do with the other 2.5 hours? Right? Sad truth. If you were to only give, let me take out a word. If you were to give 2 hours per day to your absolutely must have, like will completely define my life goal, 2 hours per day, 10 hours per week, you would be giving less than 20% of your like working hours to that thing. And you would be giving 80% of your time to the other shit. So what do you expect? Everybody's sad now.
No.
Everybody's giving me sad looks in the room, right? It's like you're gonna get what you right. You should expect what you're protecting. Okay. And so if you're not protecting the things that are really important to you, then don't expect them to work. All right, so who now has a different perspective on how they're going to time block their most important thing and they want to share it? Any ahas from that conversation?
I spend a lot of time giving 0%, so 20% is a bet.
Yay, 20% an increase.
I thought my list was pretty specific, but I realized as we're talking that it needed to be honed in way more.
Mhm.
Not just like create passive income, it needed to be more specific there, and then even more specific in terms of, okay, what am I making now? What do I need to make to feel comfortably retired? How much of that income is obviously going to be now passive income?
Mhm.
And then drill into like, what is the average income that you make per income property? Then go down to how many income properties do I need and only stay in this range, right? Like, so
Yeah.
just really truly
So,
specific.
and then daily habit for that,
Yeah,
like, is probably something to the effect of, looking on the MLS every single day, 30 minutes every day, right? Because then when you're doing that, then the lead activity is under control and the result will fall as it does.
Right.
You're not gonna control the inventory, but you're gonna control your behavior.
Um,
That's the thing to think about here, guys. You're only time blocking what you can control. If you write on your time block a result, you cannot control the result.
Okay.
Time block the activity that you can control. You can control 3 hours of making dials, like, right? Like that's a lead indicator. The lag indicator is 15 conversations, right? Or you make your lead indicator 15 conversations and the lag indicator that you're not going to measure or your time block by might be set for appointments. You see the difference there? So pick something that you can control the measurement of, and that becomes your committed time block. Anybody have like a health or lifestyle goal?
Yeah.
Oh,
Anybody?
Yes.
What was yours?
I want to lose 30 pounds by July 4th.
There. So a specific amount and a specific date.
it's funny that you said that because it totally related to how I handle my health is how I handle my business. I'm to the point where I just want the leverage. So I hired the trainer, I joined the program, and I'm just following the steps. Because it's just easier to not have to think about it. Does that make sense?
How much time do you spend like working out?
I spend 3 days a week in the gym for about an hour and 20 minutes of each of those 3 days.
So you still
And
have,
30-minute walks a day.
so you still are spending the time, you just have become more efficient at how you spend it.
Yeah.
And right, that's what leverage
Well,
is
and that I'm
efficiency.
paying that person, because I
Yeah.
knew after 30-something years that I won't go to the gym unless I'm paying somebody to make me be there.
Yeah.
That just works for me. That's like somebody says they want to do whatever and they get the vacation if they do the thing. Like
Mhm.
mine is just like, just pay the trainer, right?
Yeah.
It's no different than paying your coach or whoever. It's helping you meet that goal.
So it's funny because health and fitness goals are like, it's so easy to look at them because the numbers are like almost built in. So it's like usually like, I want to lose X amount of pounds, or I want to be able to run X time on a 10K or whatever, right? And so if you think about that, like that becomes super easy to measure. Like, oh, I'm going to just count my calories. It's like calories in, calories out. It leads to a certain result. That's predictable, right? But then we get to business and we just completely throw that out the window and we're like, I'm just gonna be committed and spend time, right? And so
You can be smart enough to just be, you can be smart
Have
enough
some
to
decent.
just dangerous, part of the phrases. But it's like you can throw a ton of arrows. That's, for me, I feel like we're similar. It's just throwing enough smart arrows, you're gonna hit that. You're
Yeah.
gonna hit the bullseye a few times. That's
absolutely.
just how it's been.
So here's a question I want you to write down. It's not a question I wrote. What's the one thing I could do regularly that would make my success in this goal inevitable. Who wants to read that back?
What's the one thing I could do regularly that would make my success in this goal inevitable? Mine, reduce impulse buys, cease impulse buys. No spending $60 at Dunkin'.
Also good for health goals.
Yeah.
My thing would be, but what I wanna do is like create, like get another bank account and then there's a percentage of every single closing that goes immediately to it
There you go.
automatically that I don't think about.
There you go.
It's a no-brainer.
So it's funny that that's an activity block. That's not even a time block.
Right.
So where's your time going to go to make sure that that happens?
Well, I'm gonna put it on my tablet.
Go to the bank.
Go to the bank.
So I would challenge that it's
Yeah.
like, what are you doing? Like maybe it's as simple as tracking your net worth on a weekly basis,
Right.
right? Having a spreadsheet where you track that. Sounds boring to me. I have it too.
No, I
But
like me a spreadsheet.
I know you love that. I know.
What are you
So,
talking about?
but like those are those simple little things, right? For Fran was like, Fran's picturing,
I thought you said France. And
No.
I was like, who's France?
Fran is picturing her toes in the sand, right? But the time block that makes that inevitable is something as simple as just making those regular touches to the sphere, to the agents, right? And so the activity that she needs to protect is as simple as that, and it needs to just happen regularly. Now, everybody, who uses a paper calendar or who uses an online digital calendar? Online.
Digital, online.
Paper. I do
Paper.
actually like
Okay.
to go.
I use both. I use paper for my kid and digital for my business. And I want everybody to stop what they're doing right now, whatever notes you were taking, and immediately go to wherever it is that you keep your time and identify the next day and time that you're going to protect to do your goal, to give your goal justice. Don't look at text messages.
No, I'm not. I'm hoping tomorrow.
It's-
My
is it-
calendar is busy for the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's so weird. It's already full.
No, that's not true. I've got time tomorrow.
It's already full. What, is anybody else observing that?
What's that?
Everybody in this room is saying, oh, but my calendar's already full.
But I'm sorry, that's my description of so many random shots.
Looking at tomorrow?
blind spots That are
Yes,
hitting
to the
goals.
garage to get this.
Looking
Hitting
at the
the
next
target,
page.
occasionally, the rest is just
Yeah.
white on it.
What are you guys finding there in Altoona?
Well, tomorrow's red day, so
So that's shocking
No.
into anything else.
I don't know about how anybody else did, but I think I have 3 R2s coming to our red day tomorrow.
Oh.
So I don't know how everybody else is doing. We have a different, but I'm just saying.
Very healthy competition.
I'm just throwing it out there. Just putting it in the water.
I support it. I support it. So other than Doug excited about Red Day and his recruits coming, what did you guys see when you looked at your calendar? Was your goal properly represented there? Was it hard to squeeze it in? Was it filled with all the other stuff of life?
You have to make the time.
Yes. So when I went back to putting the big rock in the stream, it's like, I want you to look through there. First of all, I want you to ask, what's one thing you could remove from your calendar right now?
Something personal?
No, that's like so easy. Like I just say.
No,
yes
it's not.
to- No, I mean, it's easy to remove things because I just say yes to things that I know should be in there.
Oh, well, a lot of people have a really hard time saying no. What's one thing you could say no to? Joshua. What are you thinking of it? What are you finding with this exercise?
I'm finding this to be great.
What is one thing that you need to say yes to that will advance your goal, that will help you achieve it?
Yes to? I'm not sure about that one.
What's one thing you need to make sure you put on your calendar?
To get to my goal,
Get to your goal.
I'm not sure.
What could you do tomorrow? What's your goal? First of all, what's your goal?
Well, my goal is to expand my knowledge in real estate.
Okay. So what could you do? What could you do tonight for 15 minutes that would help you do that?
I don't know, read more.
Yeah. It might literally just be that. That could be the first domino, right? 15 minutes on your calendar of reading. If you read 20 pages a day, how many books would you read a year?
I'm not sure, but a lot more than I was on pace before.
So the one thing is 240 pages. You'd be done in half of a month. So you'd probably be able to knock out, let's just even be conservative and say 20 books if you did 20 pages a day. How much knowledge would you have expanded in 20 books?
A lot.
Yeah. You could, I mean, you could read Who Moved My Cheese? That book would take you about 40 minutes. Right?
What was
It's so
that?
short. There's a
What was
book
that?
called, there's a book called Who Moved My Cheese? It's very, very, very short.
Well, I'll be saucy and say if you read for 15 minutes, you would know in less than a month, you would know the agreement of sale more than 90% of agents in the business.
Yeah.
If you committed to 15 minutes a day of reading the agreement of sale, just mastered it, that would make 90% of the agents in the business.
That's totally true, right? And it's funny, like even for, so like for Eva, right? She's our MCA, right? So it's like, it might be something where maybe it's 10 to 15 minutes a day. I don't, if it's a financial goal, right? And it might be, how could she spend 10 to 15 minutes every day protecting time to make sure that she's helping the market center grow, which then leads to our ability to create additional financial opportunities for her, right? Because like, just, not to say just, but just doing the role, right, has a limit on its impact in the market center. But doing those things that you make sure you do every day that make a big difference, those Pareto principle things that are like they make the small thing that makes a huge result, that could be the thing that you protect it for 15 minutes every day. And then making sure that you're making time for your personal financial picture. Okay. Did everybody go to their calendar and put their one action on it?
Or the next day.
Who did?
Okay. I am gonna call a listing lead and get the listing.
I love that.
Get the listing.
Get
it.
the listing. What are you gonna do after that?
Have a glass of wine.
Oh.
I approve that message.
All right. So I'm gonna leave you with these three things from the book, The One Thing. In the book, The One Thing, we spent a lot of time talking about the emotional psychology, like the psychological and habit aspects of time blocking, because the practical side of time blocking is fairly boring, right? Time blocking is blocking time to make sure that you do the tasks that you do, right? And if we would have talked about that for an hour, it would have been like, whatever, right? And the odds of failure are extremely high in time blocking.
Oh,
It's extremely easy to disrespect your time if you don't feel the significance and commitment to doing what's on there. Okay, but here's the three things from The One Thing that I want you to leave with. In this order are the things that you should be time blocking. Number one, time for you or time off. Jennifer's already upset.
No, I don't know, I talk too much, but literally day one of my license here in this office. And the agent that I was working with on his team, the first thing he said to me was, book your vacations, time block your time with your family and for yourself now, or you'll never prioritize it. Your business will take over.
Yep.
It was literally the first piece of advice I got, and he was so true. It was so correct.
Yep. Time block your time for yourself or your time off. Do you guys think that my time with Lydia is negotiable?
No.
Good luck. Trying to get me to negotiate it, right? It's absolutely non-negotiable. Time block your one thing. So that exercise that we just did helped you identify that. So now you have the first two ingredients for time blocking. You know yourself, whether you're willing to commit to your time off. I hope you are. And then you know what's important to you for your one thing. And the last thing is number 3. And this is the thing that really, really, really is the recipe for success. Time block your planning time. Because like most things, if you don't have a relationship with it, you won't remember it. You won't stay in touch with it and you won't respect it. Time is the same. And time is an absolutely unforgiving thing. It's the commodity that just keeps on leaving, right? So if you don't have time in your schedule that you just look at your calendar and like put thought into it and like, is this the best use of my day? Go to that focusing question that I gave you, right? Does the person who achieves the goal that I want to achieve, would they live this calendar this week? Right? Because if you put that time in advance, then you won't have to have the guilty feeling that you all had when I asked that question today, which was, if you looked at your calendar for what you've done, does that support your goals? Right? Because if you ask it the other way around proactively and you say, if you look at your calendar, Sunday night is a great time for looking at your calendar. If you look at your calendar, you say, okay, does this calendar look like the calendar of the person that's successful in the things I want to be successful at? So, all right, lots of thought-provoking questions. Anybody have any ahas, any thoughts on this? Was this a helpful workshop to go through and to dive into the critical parts of time blocking? There is a time blocking, tool that you can use called the 411 at the back of that packet. And essentially what you do is you take your personal and business yearly and monthly goals. What's that?
I said I like them with 3-5 better for some reason.
They're different.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
The 411 is action oriented.
I think 1 through 5 is 10.
I'm just,
Okay.
Jeff Woods didn't agree.
No, it's not.
So, but you can do that. It's a similar exercise. So take your someday goals and break that down into those. The trick with the 411 is the 411 it's predetermined. It's the time boundaries around it are predetermined because it's weekly and monthly and annually. And so that way you can determine exactly what you're going to do. And all of these should be verbs. All of these should be action oriented items. Okay. In that 411. That's on page 11, by the way, of the Kick-Ass Guide to Goal Setting packet. And use your calendar and spend time with your calendar and do those 3 things in those orders. Personal, one thing, spending time. Any ahas?
Time block.
Let me ask that question.
Time block the activity you can control. That's just, I mean, well, that's my biggest, and Eva's probably shaking her head behind you.
She is.
that's my biggest weakness in my time blocking schedule. A lot of what you went over for me personally, I've put into practice with a lot of, with help from you and coaching me up. But it's that fine tuning it with what I can control that makes it, a challenge for me every day. And Eva's been great too at giving me a little bit of a nudge and saying, hey, block your interruption time. Leave some time for you to be interrupted. That's helped. I mean, there's still some bleed over, right? I mean, you go through it too, Joe. There's still some run over, but it's just fine tuning it and getting that down. And my schedule is pretty unique. So I'm a terrible example, of this because I have such a unique schedule. There's not too many people that have it. So it's, I want to create as much time for myself as I can. And that's what I'm learning. That's where the balance has to be for me, is finding that my time.
Yeah.
Because we get swallowed up by this very easily.
So in the one thing, they talk a lot about protecting yourself, right? And so you need to create an environment that supports your goals. That can be a really savage conversation, because I have 100% seen divorces where they're like, my environment didn't support the life I wanted to build, and that included my spouse, right? So like, how much do you want it? I'm definitely not advocating that, but I'm just saying I've seen that, and people who grow apart or whatever, that's something that does happen. But it's like even office space. I call my office in York the terrarium. I hate it because it's a glass wall and it's absolutely such an unproductive office space. And I like to work from home. But the other thing is like building time blocks there's something in the one thing where they call them buffer blocks, and that's in another book as well. And I can't remember which book it is that talks about those. But essentially what you can do is, like, if you find that your mornings are a train wreck because you're like putting out fires, is limit the amount of time that you're going to give to the fire putting out. So just say, I'm only going to answer emails for the first 30 minutes. And then at 10:30, it is game on and I'm going to do the most important thing. So what that will also force you to do is to prioritize those fires, because some of those things will just have to wait until later in the day, and then you make that call and it'll be fine, right? And so that lack of priority sometimes is uncomfortable to overcome, but that helps you with creating those boundaries of what you're saying yes to and what you're saying no to. And like you said, those unpredictabilities, you can predict the unpredictabilities. You can basically say, I'm going to take those unpredictabilities and I'm going to bottle them up and control where they live, and then deal with them as they come that way.
I don't think it was I don't think it was yesterday, maybe it was last week, but I came in, I sat down, and my buffer time is 10 to 12:30 on Tuesdays when I'm at the office in Pittsburgh. And it was just like 2 weeks in a row. It was predictable. Like you just said, it was almost predictable. Like my interruptions came in that window. So it almost became where it scheduled itself, because it just falls there. Now it's time where I won't check the voicemail after 12:30. I won't check the email after 12:30. It's shifting focus now to the next task. So yeah, it's a work in progress for sure.
There's a bold law that says you teach people how to treat you, and that really shows up in calendar, because if people believe that you are unlimited at their disposal, they will treat you like you are unlimited at their disposal. If you say, I am 100% at your disposal at 11, but at 10 I'm not, then you're telling them how they can treat you, and you're teaching them, right? Anybody else have any ahas from today's workshop?
No, I do. So goal setting for me on a personal level is kind of a struggle. I think for me, it took you know, learning that your goals aren't gonna accomplish themselves, and you have to make that time, otherwise your goals aren't gonna happen. So you have to be really like mindful and like proactive about making it happen, otherwise nothing's gonna happen.
Yeah. I love that. Anybody else?
I literally looked at, in fact, because my husband and I are retiring in X amount of years. And so I took that X amount of years and thought, okay, what if I just take what I made in 2021? And I divided it by that number of years so that I've got X amount of passive income that I'm creating each year to equal that, including inflation and all that garb. But it gave me a number. It gave me a number. I need to make $14,705 per year in passive income, each year. Yeah, grow up, whatever the term is.
Look at that.
And yeah, so I'm a math nerd too. So to me, I was just like, you know, super focused on honing in and getting more specific on the 411, not the 135.
That's, thank you.
Anyway, yeah. So, and that's all that's on the page. It's $14,705. Yeah.
That's it.
But like knowing that is like, okay,
That's empowering now.
that's totally doable.
Yeah.
The first thing I'm like, okay, who do I talk to figure out? Like whatever. Anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Good. Awesome. Anybody else?
When you asked, what does the person who achieves this, meaning the someday goal, behave like? Just realizing like how important mindset actually is to getting to your goal. And people that I've seen in life, like they hit a big goal or hit the goal I'm looking for, just realizing that they probably had thousands and thousands of tiny goals they had hit along the way.
Yeah. It might be as simple, like for me, I had a period of time, it was a hard period of time. And my number one thing that I knew that I could own the day if I was awake by 5. And that became my micro goal, was awake by 5, because everything else in the day was manageable if I was up early. It would set everything up. So that's a miracle morning concept right there, but absolutely. Anybody else? Thanks for sharing.
Sorry, I've got construction out there outside my door.
Anybody else? Altoona, Alexa, Linda, feeling any certain ways?
Most of, my personal goals are always pushed to the back burner, and I think I knew that, but like writing it all down, I really realize it because I'm working 2 jobs, so I work all the time. So then whenever it's time to put my personal goal to do something comes up and I just don't make it a priority. So that's what I'm starting to see.
Yeah, well, Alexa is always there to help. And sometimes I think she should really, like one time I got upset with our group text because every time somebody needed help, Alexa would say, I'll do it. And I knew how thin she spread. And I said, I made a comment in our group text, is there anybody else that can, blah, blah, blah. And I probably offended some people, but Alexa's one of them that has just this giving, helping heart. And she has got to think of herself sometimes.
And her goals, right?
Yeah. Yes.
How much time was given to other people's goals?
A lot. I mean, I work
Still is.
the restaurant I work at is short staffed. I mean, granted, I receive income, it's steady income, working 4 days a week there, so it pays my bills, but I'll pick up the shifts if somebody calls off.
Yes, you will.
Somebody can't show a house, I'll show it for them.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm doing too much for other people's goals, but I want to be accountable and like somebody people can count on. So I feel like stuck between a rock and a hard place there to find my good balance about it.
Mm,
You learn real quick when you start to burn out.
yeah.
I've been there a
believe
couple
me,
of
I'm
times. I've been there a few
Right.
times in the past couple of years, and it takes that
Hopefully.
reset. And sometimes it's not by your choice. I will say that I've been wiped out of the picture a few times because of either illness, health, whatever. And if you don't take the time for yourself, God is in control, and he'll take the time for
Yeah.
you, is what I found. And that's a lot harder then.
Yeah.
You can't
Not
do
on
it.
your
So
terms. Okay. This was fun. Everybody have a good time?
Yes.
Thanks, everyone.
Are you grouchy about it?
No, it was a genuine break.
Something. Okay. All right, guys. I appreciate you. Thank you for this. We'll do another workshop. Anybody have any topic requests for other workshops?
I don't right now.
Time blocking.
Well, I mean, I've got so many distractions, and I gotta tell you, last year when I was so crazy busy, I was at the peak of my performance. I was focused, razor focused, and now that I have spare time,
Uh-huh.
I cannot focus. I'm
Yeah.
just so easily distracted, and it's driving me nuts.
So build a schedule that's as full as it was last year and give yourself purpose.
Okay.
Not full of junk, but like literally just
Whoa.
like, yeah. So
If
creating
I go
those,
shopping one more day, I'm gonna kill myself.
so maybe your one
Honestly.
domino is to not go shopping.
Honestly, for true, yes.
Yeah,
I
it could
just
be.
have to focus on my goals.
What was it? It was so Joe has challenged me to read the MRA before the end of the month. I am probably 80 pages into it right now. But Linda, you just reminded me of a part of it where, you know, it's very common for people to say that they work well under pressure, but pressure is like stress, which is what that is a terrible way to manage your time, basically. And so I personally felt attacked by that because that's how I exclusively operated when I was in college and would write papers.
Yeah.
Is I'd be like, oh, it's 9 hours before the deadline. I guess I'll finally start. Like, time to do some research and like read scientific articles, and then that would just be basically like the really horrible version of time blocking, where the time block is actually just 9 solid hours of me completing the entire task in one sitting. I was objectively good at it though, but also I am also obviously here and not working in environmental science, so that obviously went particularly well. But I do actually enjoy my work here though, but that was definitely the MREA saying that stress is not how you should manage your time. It is not.
Yeah, thank you for that, because my blood pressure, I always had perfect blood pressure until I got my real estate license. I'm serious.
All right, guys.
And I never drank wine.
Oh, I don't know about that. Alana's
crazy.
gonna send a survey out to everybody who was attending. So thank you for hopping in, and let us know how you like this workshop, and that way we can keep doing them. Because I can cater these. I can also trade these for other MAPS coaches and bring them over to maybe do 1 or 2 for us. So so let me know. Okay.
I need a MAPS coach.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
MAPS
thanks.
coach.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What I went to school for.